product as well.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep. It just takes really.
Coming up right now. Beautiful, there they are. I'm just going to throw this on a website and you should be good. That is yours. Let me know if you don't hear anything. It is. There's that headphone module right there.
Can you go into chat, Jason?
I might be able to do that.
Thank you.
It's a possibility.
Please. All right, are we good, Jake?
Bringing it up on the website.
So I guess we decided to do this thing where we're putting on the live stream just right before the show, so we don't lose anyone, but then it takes a few minutes.
Ah, right. Oh my God, I'm so in love with my cups. It's a little thing. They're super impressive, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
I'm pretty impressed. I love these.
I think so, definitely with saving the amount of viewers that we're getting. Because we typically get a drop off at about a minute and a half.
Well, we have to become good at this. Are you guys dropping the link into the startups group? Or no? Because that's our biggest group.
Well, I will if it comes up.
Yeah.
It's not up yet.
Take your time.
It's up on Facebook and also up on YouTube.
And also I can't hear you, so maybe we're not.
Hey everybody, we're live. Now we're live. Can you hear me in the Facebook chat room? I don't know if you can, but if you can, you're probably holding your ears because I'm a bad singer. I apologize to you for my horrible singing too.
Okay, it's not coming in through my ears. We don't test this out ahead of time?
Yep. That's one when we go. Should be an aux 4. Tested out last night. Came loud and clear.
Jason, can you say something?
Hey everybody. It's Jason Calacanis,
Okay.
and I see the live feed in my Facebook.
Can we have Laura say something?
Hi, this is Laura.
Great.
There it is. Look at that. I can see us. I can see us on the live.
So the shot, Jake also needs to adjust your shot.
Okay, because I'm a little blurry.
You are a little blurry, yep.
Okay, that happens.
You're actually, the cropping is off.
Oh, that's just on your TV.
Oh, it's just on my TV.
So that's what I'm looking at.
Alright. Well, the cropping's still off. Jason's shoulder's cut off.
Yep, we'll adjust that. Let's see here. All right.
Sorry, Laura, we'll get ready in a minute.
No worries.
Oh, there's the live URL. Hey everybody, it's another exciting episode of This Week in Startups. We're going to be starting in a minute. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I'll be one more
You
second.
might have to scoot your table back a little bit. The camera's not finding focus. A little blurry.
So you think I have to move back or the table needs to move back?
The table will move back a little bit, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Might help it.
No, it's still blurry. Look at that. Why is that? That's interesting. Something's wrong with the camera?
Was it blurry when you were setting up? Why are we just figuring this out now?
No. It was not blurry. I have no issues with this.
That's worse.
Oh, yes.
Maybe if you zoom in on this cup and then zoom out.
Yep.
Sometimes that will work. These are my new fancy cups. Look how, well, that actually is zoomed in, right? That's not blurry.
That's not blurry.
Okay. Although it is going in and out of blurriness, it looks like. You can actually read the cup. Do the work.
What this looks like when you come out.
That's better.
Better. Okay, that's fine. No?
Perfect.
It's getting blurry again? Does it look like it's blurry again?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Is the lens dirty?
No.
Do you have a lens?
Cap's been all night. No.
Like a fingerprint could have got on it, maybe? Is that possible?
Let me see if I can find some lens cleaner that might help.
It is blurry again, right, Jackie?
It's blurrier,
Yeah,
yeah.
it changed.
That's odd. Should we power that camera off and power it back on?
We double
Cycle
try.
it?
See if that'll work.
Sometimes cycling things works.
Yeah.
It's the first time I've ever seen this camera go blurry.
Me too.
So weird.
But it works for computers. Hopefully it'll work for this, right? They're really just giant computers with lenses on them.
That's it.
Huh.
See how we do. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of This Week in Startups. Dennis and my guest today, Lara Gomez. Lara.
Yeah.
Lara, and she is with Atipica.
Like atypical.
Atipica.
It means, yeah, atypical in Esperanto.
It does.
Yeah.
Atypica.
Yeah.
Atypica.
Yeah.
In Esperanza,
Yes.
which is the crazy language
Yes.
that never took hold, but a bunch of Star Trek people like.
Yes.
This was supposed to be the language that we'd all convert to,
to,
and we'd have
yeah.
a global language.
Correct.
You speak that?
No. But
Okay.
I love languages.
You do?
Yes.
How many languages do you speak?
4.
4.
None of them.
Spanish, English. Now what?
Portuguese
Oh,
and
Portuguese.
French. Yes.
And French. Okay.
All Romance language.
Except Italian.
Yeah. And Romanian. Did you know Romanian's also?
Romanian is
Yeah.
that part of the?
Yeah, it's a Romance language as well.
Huh.
People forget about it.
Well, I took 3 years of French when I was in Severian High School, and I can tell you, je parle un petit peu.
Yeah.
Still borked.
Still bad.
Yeah.
See if we can move it in close. One more time, and then, if not, I guess we'll go with something
Do you
else.
want to swap?
We can also swap out. We have a 4th camera. We could try that.
We always have had more cameras, right? The other possibility is to make the 2-shot the 1-shot, and then if the 2-shot is a little blurry, that's not a big deal,
Right.
right?
Just reverse them, yeah.
That's what I would do. Do you take them off the thing, or you just switch the whole thing?
I would just swap the whole thing. That might be a little bit faster.
Okay,
Yeah, let's do that.
let's do that.
Another alternative.
You want Jackie to help you with this?
No. Okay. Another alternative we could do is we could just grab one of our broadcast cameras, since they have full manual focus.
Do you want to just do that?
They have more control. Yeah, it'd be a lot faster, I'd say.
Do whatever's faster.
Think so?
Yeah, because right now. Yeah. All right, everybody. So if you're in the chat room right now, there's 26 of you there. I will take any questions while we're getting our new camera. Sorry, we had a camera go bad. First time in the history of the show, a camera went bad. So I'll just take your questions here. Just post a question and I'll answer it. What's up, Jason and team? Hey, from Chicago. Chris, thank you for that. Hey, Dan. Hey, Sean. Hey, Sean Brosmith. Yeah, we're swapping it. We'll swap it. Whatever's faster. That's right, Peter. That's how we do it here. Whatever is faster. We will get it done. Sorry about that to everybody. Who's got a question? Somebody's got to have a question. A startup question, a life question, something about the book or the book tour or anything like that. Yep, he's swapping the Peter because the robotic camera refuses to focus in. So we don't know Why? Is there an easy way to never miss a CNBC segment? Yes. If you go to youtube.com/thisweekin, we actually upload every segment I do on CNBC to our own channel. You can see them all there. Rock on. The book is a great resource from Ariel. Ariel, thank you for that. That's great. I do appreciate that. The book reviews have been tremendous. I'm really, really happy to see that people actually are reading the book and getting value from it. That's always like, when you write a book, Laura, you don't know if people are going to actually read it. And now, it's like people are reading it. And let's see, total number of reviews currently at 71. 71 reviews, huh? That's pretty good. I can live with 71. 71 reviews, and most of them are 5-star. 90% 5-star, 1%, 2% 4-star. One person wrote a 4-star review, and 7%, 3 people wrote 1 star. And you know what's really interesting is like there's some group of people who probably people I fired or something who are like taking this one review and voting it up like crazy, and it's like, okay, but everything else is really good. This one review is stuck at the top. It's pretty weird. Pretty weird. All right, no questions for me. All right, everybody buy the book, all right? Just do me a favor. If you buy the book, then I can write another one. Laura, you didn't buy the book yet?
I have not bought the book, but I will now.
Crestfallen.
I know.
The audio book's a good choice. I'll tell you why.
Okay, good.
I read it.
Okay.
And it's an easy listen. You can do it when you're on the subway or on a bus or riding your bike or in the gym or going for a hike or driving or whatever your mode of transportation is. It's a great option. Hey, is that better? It's a little too zoomed in, maybe a little bit further out.
But
Yeah.
focus is definitely there.
You definitely have focus. Okay, so good. Having a backup camera, always a good thing.
The old standby.
Yeah. Okay. Hey everybody. Let's take this out of the shot.
Keep the cups in the shot.
What'd you say?
Keep the cups in the shot.
I'm trying to keep the cups in the shop, but I'm trying to take the soda can out.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh my God, I love the cups. Orange.
I might need
Superpower.
a little bit more water.
Yeah, we'll get you some more water. Actually, what we do is we turn the heat up and we don't give water to the guests. We try to really increase the level of challenge.
Thank you. Thanks.
My God. These Facebook groups are really fascinating, but they are becoming total spam fests. Like everybody who joins the group, Facebook groups are getting popular.
Yeah.
Are you in any Facebook
Yeah,
groups?
and a lot.
So I guess people look at them as marketing. And so now they have a feature where you can sort the people applying by what year they joined Facebook.
Oh.
And like literally 9 out of 10 people trying to join this group have joined Facebook in 2017 and are from Mumbai or Manila.
So they're doing...
So what they're doing is like they're authentic accounts from people who are on these social media farms in the Philippines and in India. And then they ask questions in like really broken English with links that then redirect to some other landing page.
To help you do whatever.
Right. And you're just like, this almost seems like a logical post for a startup group, but not quite. And you click it and you wind up on some affiliate site or something.
Yeah.
It's just, the amount of spam is just mind-boggling. So they should just let you have a setting, like unless you can only apply to this group if you've had a Facebook account older than 2 years old
Yeah.
or something.
Something like that. That makes more sense. They need to build a reputation system for this.
Yeah, it's a big disaster. Okay, 3, 2, 1 when you're ready. There we go. All right, I'm in hip chat. Wow, we're getting a lot of people applying to the syndicate. Huh, Ashley? Jackie? I mean, you see it in the hip chat room, right? If you look, there's like 20 people a day applying. It's crazy. It's nuts. Do you see me in the chat room or no? Okay. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of This Week in Startups. I'm your host, Jason Calacanis, and this is the show where we talk to entrepreneurs and investors about the products and services that are changing the world, or hope to. Entrepreneurship is hard. Most companies fail. It's arduous, it's painful, but the highs are very high to match the incredible and continual lows, which are very, very low. It's great to be back in the studio after a great 2-week book tour in New York for Angel. It's not a memoir as such, but it's my book about angel investing. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, go to angelthebook.com. And if you want to get the audio book, I read it myself. The publisher was like, we don't know if we want you to read the book. But it came out pretty good. So listen to it on Audible, buy the hard copy, and if you are interested in angel investing, you can go to Jason's Syndicate, Jasons, syndicate.com. And if you're an accredited investor, we'll share our deals with you. And if you're non-accredited, stay tuned, because there's a lot of interesting platforms like Seed Invest and Republic that are doing non-accredited investors. So I think people in the United States who are not accredited investors are going to have a chance to do what I do for a living, which is angel invest in startups. And it's one of the most thrilling and fun things you can do. So today on the program, I have Laura Gomez. She is at Laura on Twitter. I'm not kidding. She has her first name on Twitter, Laura, like I do for Jason. And she has a company called Atipica.
Yes.
Atipica.
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 Yeah.
Atipica. Not atypical, but Atipica.
Yeah, Atipica.
What is Atipica and why did you create it? And welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Jason. Thanks for having me. Atipica is a diversity and talent solution that sits on top of applicant databases. So we are enterprise. So we're a SaaS company. We have several clients across tech as well as outside of tech. And I created it after being on a panel about almost 3 years ago on diversity in tech. And everybody kept talking about this issue, but nobody wanted to build a data-driven machine learning solution to tackle this issue. So I decided that I was passionate enough about it and founded Atipica. And it's now almost 3 years old.
Great. So now, define for the people who are listening
Yeah.
or who are watching the video, what is the issue in technology with diversity? What is the core issue of why the diversity statistics at Google, Facebook, Twitter, which I think maybe it was just 2 or 3 years ago, they started actually publishing, which I thought was amazing because I've never heard of other companies doing this. But in technology, the companies publish their diversity statistics, which I think is laudable, right?
Yes.
They started doing that about 3 years ago?
3 years ago, Tracy Chu.
Yes, Tracy. We have
who
to have
is
her on the
also,
program.
yes, she's a fellow Project Include member. So we're both part of Project Include, and she's the one that pushed Pinterest to publish the numbers, and it sort of came out as well.
So explain what the core issue is for people who are in the technology industry, or maybe they're in the technology industry but not here in the Silicon Valley. What is the core issue with diversity in tech?
The core issue is looking at it as a social impact issue instead of as a business and a business imperative. I think the second is that there's always one-sided blanket solution towards the diversity in tech or diversity in any workforce. With us, we take it as a multifaceted approach, that there's behaviors that the company's engaging in and applicants are withdrawing, and there's industry behavior. So all those behaviors combined together allow for either the needle to move or to not to move. For example, we found that women are more likely to accept job offers across all tech companies, regardless whether they're a couple hundred or a couple thousand. And that's what really moved the needle for women in tech.
So if we were to compare tech to other industries, I don't know if you have the statistic at your fingertips or not, but how is tech different than, say, finance or the media business or Hollywood or the insurance business? Is it radically different, or are certain groups overrepresented, underrepresented? And what is the cause of that problem? Is it the companies? I realize there's two questions here, but I kind of think it's one that I think a lot of people struggle with, and you are actually in the thick of this, so you probably know better than all of us. What is the difference between our industry and others with different ethnicities or groups? Which ones are overrepresented, underrepresented? And then the second part of the question is, do we know why? Is it the fault of the companies for not doing enough? Are there not enough people who have graduated with the degrees that these companies are looking for in different ethnic groups? What do you think the reasons for the difference in diversity between our industry and others?
I think other industries, let's take finance or media, those one are directly impacted by consumers, right? The consumers go ahead and say, okay, I want to either open this bank account with this bank, and they're targeting and they're really listening to my needs, and or media as well. Like a movie, as you saw recently, a lot of other female-led casts have done very well at the box office. So obviously the consumer is really, and I think with tech, we forget about the end user. And so we forget that, filters for certain Snapchats are not don't do well with darker skin folks. And so no one thought about it there at the table and forgot. We become our innovators and creators, and we are such in a silo that we don't understand how our products are impacting the end users as much as we think it should. So I think the first thing with our industry is to really acknowledge that the end users are really the ones that are driving our growth. Having been at Twitter early on, I saw the growth among African Americans as well as international, and catering to that should have, helped Twitter a little bit more as it relates now. And I think on the other end, I think there are overrepresentations of groups here, but I think everything my team and I, we were talking this morning, that everything's really anecdotal. Everything's like, there's not enough people graduating with this degree, or they're not applying, and there's no data around it. And we come in and we say, here's the data. We put our own, just received the patent, the provisional patent on our models. And so we say, here's the data before you start acting upon it.
So which groups are overrepresented? Which ones are underrepresented in our industry? And do we have an idea of why? Is sort of the question I think everybody has. Why are Asian Americans and Indian Americans so overrepresented, African Americans and Latinos so underrepresented in our industry? When you look at the data now.
But, Asian Americans are overrepresented, but they also hit ceilings in leadership positions, correct?
Oh, that's interesting.
So although they are overrepresented in tech, the mobility of managers or C-level executives at big tech companies are very few, far and few.
So even though they're overrepresented, they're not overrepresented in the C-suite.
Correct.
So that shows some level of bias.
We are looking this morning, my team and I, we were actually looking at the number of technical degrees by African Americans and Latinx. And so even though that there's only 2 to 3% of those represented in tech, they actually are getting technical degrees at 8% or 10% in some instances,
That's interesting.
And yet we're not hiring them.
So we have 8% of African Americans, or graduates of computer science degrees. You might have 8% African American and Latino.
Yeah.
But in our industry, we have 1 or 2%.
Yes.
So that makes no logical sense.
No,
There's a break there.
Yeah.
What's causing that break? Where are those minds going? Are they going to work in some other industry and they just don't feel welcome in this industry?
Yes.
What's the disconnect? Because that seems like a 6 or 7x.
Inclusion is a big problem.
Define what that means for people.
Inclusion, definitely the feeling of feeling welcome, or the feeling of understanding how other people feel, whether they feel welcome or included in the discussion. So as we move more towards data, we can actually predict where inclusion is really going to affect the workforce. And so I think in situations where I'm an applicant and I'm applying to 4 different companies, and I don't see anyone who looks like me, so I don't feel that there's an inclusion component and or recognized. So maybe a bigger corporation with opportunities, technical opportunities, there's technical roles in everything from consumer to finance. So maybe they are really working on inclusion.
So maybe at a big company like GE,
Yes.
somebody graduating, an African American or Hispanic, might see more African American and Hispanic people working at GE or
Yes.
IBM or some big company and say, you know what, I feel more comfortable here. Whereas at a startup, it might be a small number of people, and they might think, well, I'm going to be the only African American on the team. Just doesn't feel welcoming to me.
Yeah. There's a whole concept on taking your whole self to work. And so there's a lot of underrepresented minorities in tech that don't feel like that they can take their whole selves to work, that they have to leave something behind, either a part of their identity or their own potential. So I think as we grow as an industry, we need to make sure that everyone feels that they could come. Ageism is another thing, right? Like
That seems really
yes.
Prevalent.
Yes, it is.
Where is ageism? Where would you say ageism starts? At what age are people sort of discriminated against by high-tech companies? Because there's been lawsuits. I think Google and Facebook both had lawsuits where people were suing because they felt discriminated against. I'm not sure which one. I'll have Emmy Award-winning producer
I don't know.
Jackie
I think
check
that's
that,
something that we definitely want to explore at Atipica. We want to look at either words with people saying, I have over 10 years of experience, and whether there's a threshold when people list in their resume over 10 years of experience, or they list a certain date range that might promote those biases to come in.
So having 25 years experience in tech
Yes.
might actually decrease your ability to get a job. Whereas just having 10 might increase it, or 5.
Yes.
They might think this person's younger, they're going to work harder,
Yes.
they might not have a family, they're going to work. I want to go back to what you said about not being able to bring your whole self to work. Give the audience an example of what you mean by that and how that impacts a person emotionally or
Yes.
in life in general.
Definitely. I've been in tech since I was 17. I grew up in the Bay Area. I'm an immigrant, but grew up since the age of 10 here in Silicon Valley, right in the heart, Redwood City. And I didn't feel that I could bring my whole self to work throughout my whole tech career, which is over 2 decades, up until now that I created my own company where I can, because I'm the CEO, so I can bring my...
You get to define your own world.
I can.
But as a Latino woman,
Yeah.
You're Latino?
Yeah,
or-
Latina.
Yeah, so you don't feel you could be fully who you are and your ethnicity, or else people might
And
feel...
all of the different identities, that's
Yeah.
called intersectionality. So
Define what intersectionality
Yes,
is,
it's-
because I can't white-splain or mansplain that term.
No,
I've
no,
heard
no.
this intersectionality. I have an idea of what it
Yeah.
means, but educate me. What does
Yes,
it mean?
definitely. Intersectionality is a concept where there's different layers of identities that people have, and that they may be different levels of oppression to go along with those identities. So, for example, I'm an immigrant in today's America. I'm also a woman. I'm a female founder. I'm a solo founder. So there may be some times when I wake up and my intersectionality will be towards being a female founder before I'm Latina, because I'm usually the only female founder in the room. So I will choose.
That's something you choose. You choose what you're going to feel when you...
Not
when
what
the
I'm going to
situation,
feel,
or
like what
how you be
identity,
perceived?
what identity I want to take on during that.
Interesting.
Yes.
And so you might not feel comfortable with in certain groups having a certain perception about you. Is that what it means?
It's not being comfortable. It's much more on like at any given point, someone will look at me and will impose one of my identities.
Gotcha.
And so at that point where I felt my identities are much more important. So when I'm in a room full of male founders, my identity as a female founder oversees all of my other identities, because I think that that's the important conversation that I need to engage in.
When we get back from this commercial break,
Yeah.
I want to talk about how your software works and what your key insight is to
Yes.
solving these problems. Because we know there's a problem just from looking at the statistics. But what wins have you had when we get back on This Week in Startups?
Thank you.
And and then we'll show you a product.
Okay.
This is
Awesome.
great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
So Tracy was in the show too?
No,
Oh.
I want to have her on. We talk on Twitter once in a while.
Yeah, she's in South Africa right now.
Oh, is she?
Yeah. She just,
Let's talk a little bit about Project Include. You're a part of Project Include.
yes.
Laura.
Yeah, there you go.
Laura. I'm almost there. Laura. It's I knew a Laura, so it's the exact opposite of how you
Yeah.
say that. So it's going to take a while. Laura.
Yeah, there you go.
Laura.
Almost everyone, like all the CEOs at Twitter, learned how to pronounce it pretty perfectly.
Laura. It takes a little time.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the word, your mind
Yeah,
immediately
it goes into Laura.
goes into
But
Laura.
it does.
Laura.
Yeah.
I like the way Laura sounds better, actually.
Yeah, it does.
It sounds better. You ready? Hey, everybody. Welcome back to This Week in Startups. My guest, Laura Gomez. She is the CEO and founder of Atipica.
Yeah, perfect.
Atipica.
Yeah.
Which means what?
It means atypical in Esperanto.
And Esperanto is that crazy Star Trek language that everybody speaks the same language on planet Earth?
It's the first man-made language, meaning it was fabricated a couple hundred years ago by intellectuals in Europe, and they thought that this would actually take off.
Yeah, it didn't.
No, about 50,000 people around the world speak it, but yeah, it did not take off as expected.
So we've been talking about diversity in tech.
Yes.
Which, is it getting better?
Yes.
It is. So how is it getting better? Just that we're seeing like 1 or 2% changes at companies, or do you think it's getting better qualitatively for the people who are in underrepresented groups? They're feeling more comfortable at work, less maybe less that they're being treated differently and that they're more welcome, or both? Qualitative or quantitative? What's the change?
It's twofold. Our data has shown that it's mostly women who are, like in the past 7 years, are applying, accepting jobs in tech at a higher rate than men are. So that's changing on the quantitative side. It's really
so we're
women.
getting more representation of women.
Yes.
Which means less men are actually working at these companies? Or?
No, the men have more options.
Ah.
So they're maybe rejecting certain companies, or they have more options to do other career paths, whereas women are more likely to accept.
Okay. So the definition is women are accepting more jobs,
Yes.
men are turning down more jobs.
Yes.
But on a percentage basis, companies aren't at 50-50.
There aren't going to be, because the applicant pool tells us that it's an average of like 30-35% women. But there could be. There are case studies within our clients that actually do push for a much more equal representation.
It's interesting, actually. Slack has massive representation of women on the developer front.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard
Yes.
about that? Are you aware of it?
Yes,
how did they do it?
They were one of our pilot clients, and right now we're negotiating a second
I
term
didn't
with
realize
them.
that
So
they
yeah,
work with you.
yes.
So what can companies do to accelerate this, and what have you learned with your software? How does your software work?
Yeah.
Maybe you could show it to us, and
Yeah,
we'll do a quick
definitely.
demo here.
I think it's twofold. I think that, as I said, first is driven by the applicant with behaviors, right? Like applicants are applying to more jobs or accepting more roles. And I think the other is to really understand the difficult conversations, because we haven't had them. Suddenly, we've seen people wanting to talk about diversity in tech, but they don't necessarily do it in a productive way that will push for healing and change. So right
It's really
now,
hard to have this conversation
Yes,
right
it is.
now. It is. Like, people are so scared to have this conversation
Yeah.
because social media is so toxic.
oh yes,
And if you slip up, people can get really upset. People have felt marginalized for a long time, so I think maybe they have a right to be upset, and they've been treated unfairly. So a lot of people I see are opting out of the conversation. That's bad, isn't it?
yes. And I said this. I was a sociologist. I studied my grad degree, computer science, economics, sociology. One of the things that people really need to do when there's difficult situations is to actually have those tough conversations and then move forward. And so I've had tough conversations with my colleagues, with my investors, with people who are also fellow male founders, talking about how different it is for a female founder or how different it is for my career. So I think it's important, but never in a vilification. I think the vilification of this conversation has actually allowed people to become polarized, where I think it should be much more of having the tough conversations with respect. And I think that you can. I mean, transparent, direct, and moving forward towards really thinking of tangible solutions to fix it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Every time I try to mansplain stuff on Twitter, I get my ass handed to me pretty severely, but I always feel like it's worth having the conversation. I mean, I invest in a lot of women, and I'm an angel investor in a lot of companies. We do some, we really try to focus on diversity at our events and changing the ratio on stage. Yeah. But I noticed even as an event producer, if you have one panel where it's not diverse, people judge you on that panel. They don't look at the entirety of the platform and like maybe what the statistics were for the entire event. And they're just like, these people are sexist, these people are racist because this one panel wasn't representative. And it's like...
It happens to everybody. It's happened to me. It happened to me.
Oh,
a press, a media, they did an interview with me and then they penalized me for not having more women in the team. Even
as a female founder.
Yes. So don't worry, it happens to everybody. Nobody gets out.
No, it was quite interesting. There was a company, there's an organization called Gender Avengers, and it's a pretty cool company actually. It would kind of like, if I was on the other side, this is the kind of approach I would take, which is they just call everybody out on the number of the gender balance of every panel. And I was like, well, what if you're in a really obscure space? Like, let's say, I don't know, you're you have a panel of CEOs in some medical device, and there's only 10 medical device companies. They all happen to be male CEOs. Like, there's no way to force diversity on it. So that happens to be the poor statistics in that one vertical. And they're like, you still have to figure out a way to have two females on it. And I was like, okay, I guess. It was a weird conversation. I think people want
accountability, and when they demand accountability, and I think the accountability portion of this discussion overtakes the rest of the discussion into a much more productive path. But I think that that's good, that people do want accountability, but they also need context. So saying, hey, we reached out to 20 women, and 19 of them couldn't come.
That's interesting you bring that up. We actually did that. We actually published at one point, here are the women we invited on the panel. These are the ones who said yes. We had 18 no's, they weren't available, 2 no's, and they said that doesn't matter. All that matters is the result of which women you got. So then what we started doing was interesting. Jackie and I, and we started having conversations with a lot of the female co-investors I have, and said, please come, because we're trying to change the ratio. We really need you to come to the event. And we actually kind of put it on to some of the high-profile female investors and said, listen, we really need your help in changing the ratio on these panels. If you don't come, it's going to be 75% male or 85% male. And if you come, it's going to be 50-50. Please come to the event. And it worked. It worked, but they were also like, Jason, you have to understand, I'm getting invited to 20 events a week. I have to be in my office sometimes and get work done.
So I think it falls on the responsibility of a lot of either women and or people of color to show up at the events. And we know this. And the other day someone asked me, they're like, how do you do it? And I was like, if I don't show up, then I don't know who will. And if they don't see me, then they don't see themselves. So like if there's a potential female founder or I spoke at the Hispanic Scholarship Fund, and young people came up to me afterwards, and they're like, I didn't know that this is, that you existed, and so now I can continue studying computer science, and so.
Right. If you don't see that it's a possibility for you, I could see that being not heartbreaking, but it could be demoralizing, I guess would probably be the word. Like, why is there nobody like me up on the stage?
Yes.
Right. And that's why Freda Kapoor told me that. Like, you could really be part of the change, Jason.
Yeah, I love Freda. She's one of our
she's fantastic. So what does this project include? Tell me about Project Include. What is that?
So I am one of the founding team members of Project Include. It's a nonprofit. There's other 7 women and myself who started this. It was just a project to talk about true diversity and inclusion, and we're proud now that that it's a nonprofit. There's a director in charge now. We have different abilities for Startup Include, where there's cohorts of startups going through or the program to really be inclusive. And then we have an upcoming VC Include as well. And everybody can go to projectinclude.org.
And it's just to talk about the issue, or?
No, it's to give the support to those founders that really want to.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so we've had the first cohort was last year. We have a second cohort that's about to start, but yeah.
So underrepresented founders getting support?
Any founders.
Oh, any founder to make their company more inclusive.
Yes.
Got it. Now I understand.
Yeah, so that's Startup Include. Project Include itself is a nonprofit, and there's VC Include to also guide venture capitalists on how to promote diversity and inclusion within their portfolio companies.
So let's take a look at your software.
Yeah.
I mean, you're here, you're a founder.
Yeah.
That's what we like to do here. We like to
Yeah,
look
definitely.
at products. Show me your
Yes.
product.
This morning I was interviewing a head of data science who comes from also the recruiting platform. What I really discussed with Atipica, and this is our new website that's about to come out.
Beautiful.
Next week or the week after, is that we really think about analytics and data-driven decisions around the modern workforce. As you see here, when we don't talk about, hey, it feels good to hire a woman, it's much more like, are there more women with these degrees that want to apply at your company and make it more diverse in it, the diversity of the product. We do have, right before I came here, our patent agent just sent me the provisional patent. Oh. So what we do is actually take the resume, and from the resume, we extract all the information necessary that we think can predict aggregate information around the applicants. Then we use public information and industry information. So we use government data and machine learning, obviously. So our accuracy rate for gender is about 96%. So we can take a look at aggregate and say, here, for this demo, as you know, we call it Pied Piper because it's one of my favorite shows.
Yes.
But yeah, there's Ehrlich. Hi, Ehrlich.
So here we are, we're looking at Ehrlich, and he's the most misogynistic, insane pothead. But putting that aside, you can see the number of applicants and how many are female versus male.
Yes, and as you can see here, they actually had a peak with female applicants about early last year. But they're the same trends. We also look at the applicants and the likelihood that people will get hired. Mm-hmm. So as you see here, when we go back to women, they're more likely to get hired than they applied.
Got it.
Whereas men are less likely to get hired because men are rejecting the company.
Interesting.
Yes.
So, and that just shows men have more options overall.
Yes.
So that's an issue.
Yeah, it is an issue.
Women get offered less jobs.
And we also look at statistical significance, meaning everything being equal, what is the higher rate? And so our statistical significant testing actually takes 10 times longer than our original algorithms because we are telling the story of likelihood of being hired, who's likely to get either rejected, what are the applicant behaviors, and then we give the reasons here.
Because people now are tracking, hey, why didn't we hire this person? Was it relevant experience? Didn't have relevant experience? And did you find any correlations in the early companies, without saying the names of the companies, but where they had, let's say, blind spots? They were holding women to a higher, do the hiring managers hold women to a higher standard?
Yes, and so we're looking at that. We're looking at the composition of the teams as well as the comments that people are making. But as you can see here, even women here or other actually withdrew for another reason and they never documented it. So we are asking companies to actually go and say, if women say other, can you specify what other? Was it, there was no time. And then here, obviously you see men will withdraw because of the timing. They're just like, we're not interested. Whereas women, that's a less.
Right. So about 20% less times are women saying it's bad timing. So in other words, it is good timing. They might have considered the job, but there's this big swath of other reasons of why they bowed out.
Yes.
But which makes one wonder what that is.
Yes. And you also want to look, for example, if the interview for this organization, let's say customer experience, if they're withdrawing at a higher rate, here it doesn't seem to be that much. you might want to look at who's doing the interview too.
So you could have bias on the interviewer.
Yes, whereas some of them are process, so like application reviews, process tools, resume reviewing, phone screen is a human, interview one may be a technical test.
So really, this is workflow for interviews, and it's valuable to do this independent of gender or
yes.
or ethnicity, but it does give you some insight if you are knocking people out or people are opting out based on one of these things. And
we do it, this is all our own model, so it's 100%, so we take all of the historical. So you can even look at, nothing of this is self-reported. It's the information we've taken from the resume and public information to make these predictions on aggregate.
People are doing a process now, I understand, of taking the names off of resumes, so that in that first process, you don't know if they're male, female. You don't know. You can't make any inferences about ethnicity from the name, because there have been many studies where they make ethnic names and it has an adverse effect.
Yes.
So that's clear. Are you an advocate of that or not? Because it seems like you're an advocate of understanding what the gender and ethnicity is, or not. I'm not sure. I didn't see ethnicity in there.
We do have another product where we do resume reviewing, and it's all skill based, so that there's no pattern matching around school or names or everything. So we are big proponent of skill based matching and resume reviewing. That's outside. So the interviewer might not know those things, like which school it was, but they would know it's a good school, let's say, or a top third school, top quartile, whatever. They would focus on the skill set. Or they were like, okay, I don't know whether this person went to even college, but they have 5 years of experience in Python. Got it. Skill-based. And so skill-based, right. Yeah, that's much more important than... Which seems to be, I mean, let's go into some hard questions, right? Because we're sitting here, people are afraid to have the discussion. Yeah. Let's go into some of the hard questions. Is Silicon Valley a meritocracy when it comes to people who have high skill in a sought-after programming language, let's say? So if there is a just massive need for people who can do C++ and because of the app boom, is there really a bunch of bias? In other words, if somebody was from an underrepresented group or was female, but they had that skill, definitively had that skill, do you perceive that they would have bias against them even with the sought-after skill? And do the statistics back that up? Yes. We see time and time again that a technical degree, let's say from Berkeley or Stanford, will override a technical degree from San Jose State with more experience. And so I don't think that there is such a thing. Okay, well, that's college to college. Yeah, yes. So... And college to college, people might say Stanford has a harder benchmark to get into, let's say. Like I couldn't get into Stanford. I went to Fordham. I went to like a second-tier school. So there is some validity to that, right? Or no? I mean, computer science is computer science, right? Whether they're rigorous courses of getting in, at the end of the day, is experience. I kind of agree with you on that, actually. I kind of agree with you on that. I think that the bias that you got into those better schools doesn't exactly translate, but I understand some people are looking to hire based on achievement, and they see the ability to get into a Harvard or a Stanford as a sign that you achieved greatness in high school. Is that wrong in your mind? Is that biased, or is that they're just obsessed with people being able to... Some of the best programmers I ever worked alongside with at all these tech companies I've worked at were self-taught. Right. And I don't think that I went to a pretty good school. I went to Berkeley, but I also got accepted to Harvard and Stanford and didn't go there. So what my life could have been, I don't think about it. I think about more of what the learnings that I got from undergrad. But these are recent grads. My team is composed of almost different types of degrees, from civil engineering, even though we're a data science company, to chemical, to health. So they all got a degree, but they all have a passion for data and to build products. So if somebody says, I want to just hire Ivy League people, I'm going to take this, because the reason I want to pursue this is because I did have somebody notable say to me from one of these big companies a number of years ago, not in a public space,
we just hire people based on raw intelligence, and raw intelligence is like your SAT score and what school you went to. Therefore, we just want the smartest people in the room, and we're unabashed about that. And if you went to a second-tier school like I did, or your SATs weren't 1,600, mine were 1,150 or whatever, you just wouldn't qualify. Is that bias, or is that a high standard in your mind?
There's clearly a bias that will probably derail them from their business goals at the end. Google established this bias for a long, long time, over a decade, if not over 15 years. And then they did the data and they did the studies and they figured out that GPA did not matter on in their hiring or in their employee performance. And then they took it all back after having established this for X amount of decades.
Wait, who did this?
Google.
Google did, right?
Yes.
Google had this position.
Yeah, oh, no, they had a GPA requirement.
They had a GPA requirement.
Yeah, up until like 5 years ago, I believe.
So you just had to be top of your class, or you couldn't go to Google.
I had a friend that worked at YouTube, that worked there, did a phenomenal job as a contractor for a whole year. The reason that they didn't hire him in 2008 or 9 was because he had a 3.4 GPA.
So was crushing it at the job, but didn't crush it in college, just did okay.
He was 29. I mean, he had been out of college almost 9 years. It really didn't matter.
But Google still believed that his 3.4 GPA from whatever year was the deciding factor on his ability at YouTube 10 years later.
Yes.
It's nonsense.
Nonsense. And then they found out, they ran the data, they ran their hiring, they ran employee performance, and then scraped it all off, saying, no, it did not matter.
That's fascinating.
Yes.
And what about by school? So that's GPA. Mm-hmm. But what about bias towards schools? I want to kind of, I know it's a finer point, but do you think if somebody says, I want to hire from MIT, Stanford, and Harvard, and I don't know, pick 5 schools that are in the top whatever percentile, because in the past, I've seen that people have been great from those schools, and we know those schools are very hard to get into and they have their selection process. Is that bias?
It's clear pattern matching that they want to justify.
Okay.
I'm not here to say whether it's a bias or not. I believe it is, but it's pattern matching that they want to justify. The thing they have to understand is that the pool is only so limited. So while they're saying, I only want to hire from these schools, all of tech is also saying that. So if you run the numbers, the probability of you hiring people from these schools,
so on a pragmatic basis, it's so. The reason I bring up this hard issue is because I have heard from. There was a company in New York, I believe it was Juno or something, who just said, we only are hiring Ivy League schools. Like, that's it. We will only hire from the Ivy League, and we're winning because of that. And I'm just curious if that is bias or that is having some clever hack to hiring only the smartest people and creating a culture of these only the kids who were top of their class who could get there, because this is the debate, isn't it?
What's winning to them, though, right? Like, we want to
making the most money.
We want to aggregate a database of all. Right now, we only have U.S.-based schools, but eventually, like, we can say, what's the MIT of Mexico, or what's the MIT of Brazil? Should you, if you're going to hire the MITs in the United States, don't you want to hire global talent that also went to those? That you're looking at diversity of education in a different lens. I think like making money for them, that's great. I think having a business goal that is in par with impacting the world, and not only the workforce. I mean, McKinsey published a report that if by 2025 we close the wage gap between women, that would bring in, I think it was $24 trillion to the global.
That's ridiculous. I mean, how do we even have a wage gap between men and women? It makes no sense to me. All right. When we get back from this final break, we're going to go into more of the hard questions that people do not want us to discuss.
Yes.
I'm going to do just a couple of fair warning, trigger warning. I want to talk about the pipeline problem that people refer to, and if there is a pipeline problem, or if that is BS, when we get back on This Week in Startups.
Thank you.
This is great. We're covering all the issues that nobody wants to talk about. Jake's coming in to check stuff? Here we go.
Sharpen you up a little bit.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, this is pretty good discussion.
How are you doing on water, Laura?
Amazing. Amazing. Considered people can have a reasonable discussion.
Yeah.
Well, it's a thing with like Twitter. Like every time I try to talk about something on Twitter, it's people are just like, "You're a white guy who had everything handed to you," and I'm like, Not exactly. I kind of worked for it, but I am a white guy, so I did have some stuff handed to me. It is true.
I think that kind of conversation also lacks empathy. I always advocate for empathetic, like, approaches.
Yeah.
Like, even our product is very empathetic. Like, we don't go and say vilify, like, oh my God, this hiring manager. We just say, hey, how can we help you understand better what's happening with your
Right.
talent here?
Without like painting them into a corner, you're a racist, right?
Yeah,
or like
yeah,
you're a
sexist.
bias.
Yeah,
It kind of does.
yeah.
I think it's like part of the reason why the country is so on tilt right now is
Yeah.
that there's a group of people who feel like they've been told, like the Trump supporters, that they are racist and, you know, be politically correct and all that stuff. And they just were like, you know what? Let's put this asshole in because that'll show those other people.
Yeah.
Right? All right, let's start.
Yeah.
Don't leave it in the dugout.
I know we have to still take Dustin.
Okay.
And
10 more minutes. We're good.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe I'll spend a few minutes. Laura said she
Yeah.
interesting background, like she's at Twitter and did all this great
Yeah.
stuff. I don't know if you could like just.
Yeah, I'll loop that in.
I don't want that to go to waste.
Hey Jason, can you turn one of the cups so we do the work?
Sorry, Laura.
Oh, no, it's okay.
Then
No
we
worries.
have
No.
This week in startups and then do the work.
Got it. Okay.
Perfect.
You may need to. I think I'm blurry again. That's so weird. And I think you can't see the cups here.
You made it worse, Jake.
It's definitely blurrier. What is going on? Is it the lighting today?
You made it worse. It was actually fine before.
Yeah. Maybe go back a little bit. I don't know. There are my eyes. There are the cups.
Does it blur again? I'm on manual focus.
That looks pretty good. Is that good to you, Jackie?
No, it was better before. It was fine before. I don't know why you fixed it.
Should we hit autofocus or?
Yeah,
Huh.
it seems blurry.
It seems blurry, right? It does. This is a weird day. We're having a weird issue. Weird. Let's see. Because I'm looking at it on my computer. That's where I can usually see if it's blurry. Look at it. I'm still blurry.
That's blurrier.
Blurrier.
Yep, testing it.
Okay. Let's see what happens. Still.
That's sharp.
Yeah, it's nice and sharp. And then all I'm doing is pulling back,
And it gets blurry.
and I get blurred.
So it's trying to focus on that person behind me in that office. Is that what's happening? So maybe you can cut.
Painting. Oh, that's better. Go. You had it for a second. That's better.
That's better, yeah.
Let's go. Come on.
All right.
No more fussing around with it.
Okay. Sounds good. It looks actually much better now. Good job. Okay. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, when you're ready. Sorry about that, Laura. Laura. 3, 2, 1, when you're ready. Hey, everybody, welcome back to This Week in Startups. My guest, Laura Gomez. She is Laura. She worked at YouTube, Twitter, Jawbone. She even managed Twitter en español,
Yes.
so Spanish Twitter.
Yes.
Black Twitter and Spanish Twitter, those are very unique, specific components of Twitter's success, yes?
International users
Yeah.
and African American
Yeah.
user base are very key to almost every single social media: Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter.
For sure.
Yes.
Like Instagram is
Yeah.
massively
Yes.
driven by African American
Content.
content and also celebrities too.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just watched like who do I follow? What's her name? God, I forgot her name. I always forget her name because Muva is what she calls herself. It's her nickname. What is her? Amber Rose.
Okay. Oh yeah.
She is huge on
Yeah. Instagram.
like Instagram, like 50 million followers. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And she's not like an artist or
No, she's just a.
she's a person.
phenomenon, Yeah.
She's not even like a basketball player or a rapper or a singer or an actress. She's just
Yeah.
a personality.
Yeah.
It's incredible, the scale of it. Okay, let's talk about the issue that everybody gets very triggered by, becomes a big fight, pipeline. When people say the word pipeline problem, some people get very upset that this is even said that there's a pipeline problem. So let me just ask you candidly, is there a pipeline problem in some cases where there's not enough graduates coming in? And why is the idea that we could improve the pipeline met with such anger?
Yeah.
Let's talk
That's
about
a great
that.
question. We were asking ourselves this morning on on Slack, my team and I, First and foremost, because everything's anecdotal. And this anecdote, unless you all actually have the hard data, you have the information, you can't say. Second, it's a blanket statement. So if you're saying, I have a pipeline issue finding female Android engineers who know this, maybe that's not anecdotal. It's not blanket. You're saying, I'm trying to find in this, or finding female engineers for my startup that is SaaS and like whatever. So like, but when you just say it's a pipeline issue, it triggers people because it's such a blanket statement. It's so anecdotal and nothing is backed by true data. We have that. And that's the part that we want to say, okay, here, there is no such thing as a blanket diversity solution. There's no such thing as a blanket pipeline issue. And then we look at the representation. I am Latina, and I look at the representation of Latinos in general in tech, 2 to 3%, even though we're graduating with degrees at a faster rate than the rest of the population. And
what should the percentage be if it were to look like the composition of graduations from computer science?
As the rest of so we have data by the California employment agency where like that ratio is anywhere from 12 to 14%. It shouldn't be 2 to 3%. Those are professionals.
Right.
Professional
So it should be
Latinos.
4x.
Yes.
Ballpark, 5x.
Yes.
But it's not.
No.
And the reason, as best as we can look at it, is probably some bias on the part of the companies or creating cultures that don't feel inclusive, so those people don't want to join.
It's the bias, the pattern matching, and the referrals networks.
Ah, the referral network. Explain why that is so critical.
So I work at a tech company early on. I then decide I'm going to build my own company. Who am I going to hire? Oh, the guys that I worked with earlier on, or
which makes sense.
It makes
total sense. I've
but
worked with these people before.
Yes.
We could start on second base in terms of our rhythm together. We'll hit the ground running. Would
definitely.
What people would say.
I think so, but I didn't build my company built on my network. I could have tapped into my network easily. Instead, I chose to build a company that was truly came from different experiences and viewpoints.
Did it take you longer?
Yes.
Was it more arduous?
Yes.
And then I guess if it was arduous and it took you longer, then what was the benefit would be the question. And do you feel that arduous journey, that longer journey to build a more diverse organization, what has been the outcome for you as the CEO? Has it made a better culture, or has it actually been better results for your company?
I think there's better authenticity in our tools. We went to market with our new product that you just saw a couple months ago, and the response from companies that are very data driven as well, big tech companies, was because we were looking at a lens we were looking at this problem through a different lens, and we weren't replicating our own biases. So you see products are being built all the time now with biased machine learning. Yeah. So what is that going to be like? It's going to perpetuate the behaviors that people have, whether it's through recruiting, hiring, or through your own products. And so although it took a little bit longer to build an inclusive team, our number one core value, the number one was be humble and authentic. And I think a lot of entitlement happens in tech. And so like when you're entitled, you don't understand your business as well as you should, or you don't build that empathy with your client base. And I think we're testament that clients want empathy when they're working, especially in enterprise.
Tell me what's the best way for a white guy like me who feels like maybe I felt for a while in my life like I was an outsider. Mm-hmm. But in truth, on the spectrum of outsiders in America, I'm nowhere near the people who were the most outsiders. And on a global basis, I'm certainly not. If you take it on a global basis, obviously I was born in America. Yeah. How should a white male, successful tech guy, I'm not a bro, but how should I approach the discussion of diversity and gender? What is the best approach for people in leadership positions to help solve the problem?
I think being an ally doesn't mean just saying, hey, I support female founders or I have, female guests on my show. It's more of saying, what are the things? I think there was an excellent point that Ellen Powell, who's one of our other members of Project Include, she tweeted out a couple of weeks ago. It was like, is someone saying, wrote a Medium post around this person, had spoke up for me when I was not in the room. And that sponsorship is so important, correct? Like the sponsorship, I have a pretty diverse set of investors, of all different races and
which isn't an easy thing to do.
No.
Because if you look at the statistics there, it's truly miserable.
But also I have, stereotypical, venture, with
white guys.
Yeah, white guys. But they're
You
very
can say
supportive. They're very supportive. I know.
These white guys are supportive? Really? I find it hard to believe.
Yeah, they are.
We're laughing, but it's true. It's like,
it's that their support. They're my sponsor. They've sponsored me not only with capital, but with support. Right now, I'm in the process of hiring 2 C-level executives, head of data science and a chief operating officer. My investors are interviewing them because they know I was like, I don't have the time. I'm a solo founder, and I have to run a company and sales and onboard. And they're helping. And so, I think that sponsorship is really important. So when you ask, and you can't sponsor everybody, right? We can't, we have our day jobs. We have to do so much. But I make it a point also to sponsor outside of the Silicon Valley, to sponsor founders of colors. Usually they tend to be African-American men who live in Atlanta or who live somewhere else. And when they come here, they want intros, right? We all know that the network is very strong here. So I tend to be, maybe I can't do it to all, but I can do it to 2 founders and make those intros and make those. So I think sponsorship, whether you're a white guy like you or you're a Latina female founder, as long as we're sponsor at least certain people and we're honest and authentic in it, because if we just go and put a blanket solution of I'm going to write a Medium post about how much I love female founders, and you really don't live that every day, it's hard. People are going to hold you accountable.
Yeah. I think this is, I don't know about you, but I feel like even through all this bad stuff that's gone down, a lot of bad feelings, I feel like we're trending towards a more just and a better version of Silicon Valley. Maybe I'm just a positive person, but I kind of feel like things have gotten a lot better, because I know in the early days of the conference where we'd have people apply, the number of female founders just applying on an open application were, low single digits. Yeah. Now all of a sudden we're starting to see double digits. Yeah. We're starting to see significant double digits with founders in them. So something has happened in the last decade where women feel more welcome and are getting funded more. So I feel like it is trending in the right way, just based on the statistics I see for my incubator and et cetera. So do you feel it's getting better, or is that just my white-splaining of it?
No, I do. I'm like you. I'm an optimist, and I also think, as I was explaining to you during the break, very much more an empathetic approach to solving a lot of hard issues. I think when all of these things, all the news that broke out in the last couple of months around female founders, I chose to then tweet something that was very different. I said, when we celebrate other people's, demise, we're not going to start healing ourselves.
Right.
So I think having those conversations and seeing yes, people need to be held accountable for their behaviors, but as female founders or as more people of color in tech, we need to really have that and see that for every, that 5 years from now, a female founder won't even think that that's very different.
Yeah, I think it's sort of now becoming the idea of a female founder being some unique unicorn and oh my God, we found one. It's found one. I mean, I don't think it's half the industry yet, but I would say a third of all the companies coming out of incubators have a female on the founding team or amongst the founders, which seems like real progress.
Yes, and I think there's still a lot of progress, right? Because the female founders will be there, but they need to get funded in order to stay there.
They do.
And I think, but as I said, when people ask me how it is to be a female founder, sometimes I'm like, I'm a solo founder, which is harder. So, and then I go.
So the intersectionality of solo founder versus female versus Latino, solo is the hardest.
Yes, it is. And I think, you've had guests here talking about solo founder. And
well, it's so lonely because if you're a solo founder, what I always tell people, when I invest in a solo founder, I say, listen, you can't tell your team just how badly things are going, or else they'll quit. Yeah. You can't tell your investors how badly things are going, or else they won't give you the bridge you need or keep investing in all likelihood. So who do you call as a solo founder? I always tell the solo founders, when things are terrible, call me. Yeah. Because I'm a founder first and foremost. I understand how bad it can get.
Yeah, definitely.
but it's lonely.
Yeah, it
It
is.
is lonely.
And people need to get. I thankfully had the support of my investors when I said I need to hire a C-level executive to come and help me with operations. And so we're in the process of that and very excited. And so, yes. But I think at the end of the day, do I think it's getting better? Yes. I've lived in Silicon Valley my whole life.
Right.
I got my first internship at Hewlett-Packard. I wasn't talking about these issues 6-7 years ago. We just kind of brushed it under the table. There were times where I only spoke Spanish to the kitchen staff.
Wow.
And, now there's changes to be made and done, and there's a lot of support networks that are popping up to support more diversity, and there's a lot of advocacy going on, and I think I have to thank the rest of the industry too, for people that are advocating, whether they're inside tech companies or whether they tweet something in order that they are actually sharing their story so people can talk about it.
I've tried to do it. The approach I've taken is to stop arguing with people on Twitter about the issue and just quietly do work.
Yeah.
Because it seems like there's people on Twitter lose all empathy. It becomes a big fight about how much was handed to me and how easy I have it versus how hard other people have it. And then I'm trying to defend myself, like saying, like, well, I didn't have it easy. My parents went broke, and I was from Brooklyn, and it wasn't hard. It wasn't easy for me. Then I was like, you know what? This is like a zero-sum game.
It always is. I was a columnist did a profile of me last week or the week before, and then people started arguing around because she included something around my appearance, and then people started arguing with me around whether I would have been in that column if I looked different. And so there's always these discussions on Twitter that are not
so the idea is if you were photogenic, you got the piece?
Yes. So there's
Yeah, I've struggled with this issue myself. A lot of people are saying, J. Cal, you're so attractive. Luckily, I don't have to deal with this issue. People are not putting me on the cover of their magazine.
Like I think I read an article this morning around Snapchat, and they were talking about the T-shirt that Evan was wearing. So I think people are always focusing on what is engaging conversation. I think taking those conversations offline is making sure that there's empathy in the process, but also making sure there's accountability. Yeah. Because you can be all nice and empathetic, but if people are not held accountable,
it's just a bummer that you're out there doing the work, and then somebody's like, oh, you got some credit and some press, which press can be very helpful for a business. You might get a new hire, you might get a new investor, and they're like, oh my God, the only reason you're getting press is because of this. I remember Kim Polisi in our industry back in the day was a female founder, and they put her in a series of ads, I guess, like one of the Cisco's of the world or whoever were like, wow, she's a founder and she's attractive, and let's just put her in this ad campaign. They put her in an ad campaign that all the knives came out. Oh, she's not a serious founder. They put her in an ad campaign, Yeah. And it was like, well, if I got asked to be in an ad campaign for Tesla or for some product I loved, I would do it. They're not asking me, but I would do it. And then would you judge me based on that? It's crazy, right? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, no. But I think in general, what happens is that women, I think in general, are held to different standards. Yeah. Right? Than men are in general. And I think we just need to make sure that we are aware of those standards when we're investing in women. I think about it, everything's going great with Atipica. Hiring people, we're moving into our new offices, is very exciting. But I think about it, I'm like, what if I were to fail? Do I have the privilege of failure in startups? And that's not a privilege that I actually have as a female founder or as a woman of color. And so that's, whereas
you
the other
feel
people...
if you fail once, that's it, you're written off. You're one and done.
Yes. And whereas I see my other friends who are founder friends who have the privilege of failure.
Screw it, I'll fail and I get more money next time.
Yes.
It's interesting you said that. I had a female founder I invested in who said, Jason, because I was like, wow, you're so hardworking and so responsive and the results are so great. And she's like, I have to make this work. I said, what do you mean? She said, if I don't make this work, I'll never be funded again. That's my one shot. I said, why is it your one shot? I would invest in you again. She goes, no, women get one shot as a founder, and that's it. And I was like, well, that's a very interesting point. People, we looked at it and said we're not getting enough female applicants in our zone of where we want to invest, which is call it 10 to 75K in MRR, monthly recurring revenue for those people who are listening. Maybe they're on the road to making $500,000 a year, $250,000, $1 million. That's where we kind of like to engage in a startup. And we're like, you know what? Let's just move upstream. Let's just go upstream and see, not to use the pipeline, but I'll use a river, which is, hey, maybe up the river, if we walk up the river and we'll find out, hey, these female founders are struggling with these issues, and here are the ones who are most likely to hit that, characteristic of where we want to invest next. And so we just did a female founder university. We did it kind of quietly. We had I think 400 women apply. We accepted 50. We did it for 2 days, and now I think 4 or 5 of them are going to come to our incubator.
That's awesome.
And it was like, you know what? You can actually fix the pipeline problem if you just go. I find if you look at it as a river metaphor, if the pipeline one's too triggering for people, but if we go up the river, and you find, hey, this is where the stream is. Here's where the water's coming out of, right? Here's where the talent is. You can help them navigate the river to get to the point at which they're ready for venture-style investing, right? And so I think people just have to be a little more creative when they say they're not seeing enough candidates.
Caper.
Caper Capital.
They did that with me. I mean, they didn't invest in Atipica until maybe 14 months after I first started talking to them. And both Mitch and Frida had very concrete product and feedback during my demo and said, do this. And then I did, and I figured out how to focus. And then later on, when True came in, they came in and funded, and then they pulled in someone else, which is
You made it impossible for them to say no.
Yeah.
They told you what they wanted, and you did it.
Yeah, but that is the feedback of all founders, to listen to what the market, what the investors are telling you, and learn from that, and then also go with your own instinct, right?
It's super important because a lot of times people are working on projects independent of gender, independent of ethnicity, but people work on projects that don't have venture scale. They can never hit $100 million in revenue because it's a service-based business, or it's, just not going to give a venture capitalist a return profile, so they think, oh, there's bias here. It's like the bias is that the business doesn't have venture returns. It's never going to grow to 50 or 100 million. The bias isn't against you; it's against the revenue profile. Figure out a way to unlock the revenue so that it can become bigger, and it's not like in a niche. It's a little bit blue ocean and bigger, and then you could unlock it. I see a lot of people, and this might be part of this perverse dynamic where I think women are held to a higher standard. So therefore, they try to pick businesses that can quickly become profitable because they're not given the chance. But then there's this duplicity where the investors are saying, well, we want a bigger vision. And it's like, well, which one do you want? Do you want me to get revenue quickly? Well, that means I have to have a narrower vision and provide value now. Or do you want me to go big and have $1 billion vision? And it really is like this maddening, are we going big or are we going small? Are we going to go, with a flywheel where we make a little bit of money, or are we going to go with something where we go big really quick?
Correct.
Over time. It's a constant challenge. So listen, Laura Gomez, Atipica is available now for purchase.
Yeah.
Atipicainc.com, ATIPICAINC.com. You can follow Laura on Twitter, LAURA. She's part of the First Name Club. Yes. Very impressive. And get Atipica. And what does the software cost? How do you charge for it, I wonder?
It depends on computational value of each resume. So whether we...
Computational value of each resume. Interesting. Explain.
Yeah. So it's not a flat fee, because whether we run 100,000 resumes or 1 million, you can get any seats. You can give seats to your recruiters, to your heads of talent acquisition, diversity, your CEO.
So it's on usage.
Yeah, it's on
complexity of the resume.
Yeah, of the resume. So because we're extracting and then we host them, and so it all depends. A lot of our tech clients have sort of more of a base annual fee.
So $5 or $10 grand a year.
More.
Yeah, 25, 50.
Yes, yeah, and anywhere from 10 to 20.
Got it.
And then,
so that's reasonable. $1,000 a month, $2,000 a month.
Yeah. And then for large enterprise, obviously, we then have to see how they want to work. But this is an intelligent solution. It's really, we're working with companies to understand the skill set of their applicants, to understand how applicants are moving, whether it's gender or race, but really just making sure that they're retaining the talent through that pipeline and doesn't become a leaky pipeline.
Can you go? I like that leaky pipeline. Can you just go onto LinkedIn and be like, here are all the Latino women, and you could just give people here is the gold mine of where you can really find some of the talented people who are underrepresented, And do
Well-
companies just ask you for that? Like, just give me 100 applicants of.
But they already have it.
They already have it.
They have it in their applicant tracking systems, right?
They do.
Yeah, they're
so
already
that's not
there.
the issue. Is finding them. The
No.
issue is figuring out what's
Surfacing.
surfacing. Interesting.
Surfacing and recommending them
Got it.
in a way that makes value for their company size, whether they're like 200 people or 2,000, and what roles are they looking
They
for.
should do events like we do. If I was in one of these big companies like Twitter or something,
Yeah.
or Facebook or Google, and I had this diversity problem, I would host events like Black Girls Who Code, Latina Girls
Yes.
in Tech,
so.
whatever, and just try to have like a regularly occurring events on campus celebrating and bringing together those underrepresented groups so they could be like, oh, we're on campus drinking Phil's coffee at Facebook. We belong on campus because they're having the event on campus. Don't they do that or no?
They do, but I
I
think
don't
what's
think they
more,
do it that
what,
often.
What they need to do is actually have recruiters at these events.
Yes.
Right? They don't. They
What?
they host these. I've been at events at these companies
So
where
dumb.
like literally dozens, if not hundreds, of Latino professionals with degrees, everything from law.
And then nobody shows up from HR.
No.
And none of the managers show up.
No.
It's so dumb.
And so it's the same when it comes to investment, right? Like if you go to these events and there's female founders or anything, there's ideas out there that you might want to be able to take a look at. And I think that that's really important.
Yeah.
And so I think that it goes both ways on increasing both how you want. At the end of the day, a founder is a founder, but like if you actually go try to find those founders in different settings that are not at a happy hour on a Friday night, then you might get lucky.
We had, it's coming up with strategies is really, I think, one of the key takeaways from our discussion today, because really, if you don't have a plan to resolve the issues around diversity, then there's no way to succeed. It's just not going to happen accidentally, because if it would have happened just organically, it would have happened already.
Yeah.
Because the issue is not the pipeline. If 12% of the graduates in computer science are Latino and 2% are getting hired, it's not the pipeline. I mean, it might be the pipeline when we get to 12%. You could say we need to
Yes.
get to 14 or 18% graduating, but that's not the issue we're at yet.
No, we're not. And I think at the end of the day, it's looking at adapting to the workforce. And if the workforce looks very different each year, and it's going to look different in 5 years, in 10 years, if businesses are not adapting to that workforce, they're going to really miss out on the value that they're able to provide to the business, to the product, to the companies. And so hopefully people don't see this they see this as a business imperative more than they see it as something like, oh, I want more female
Listen,
engineers.
in my job, angel investor, I just want huge returns.
Yes, there you
And
go.
here's what I've learned. The underrepresented individuals are working 10 times harder because, like you, they realize, like, I'm not going to get a second opportunity. So if you're actually placing bets and you believe that hustle and hard work and the desire to win is important, which I think
Yeah,
is
we
pretty
do.
damn important. Like, investing in female founders, I found, is just I've never seen a circumstance where a female founder did not put their entire heart and soul into their project. And I can tell you with male founders, I have seen many times where they were at Web Summit, Summit at Sea, Summit here, Summit there, and they were never at home, TEDx, and they were never doing any work. And they never even got their product to market. I just think the women work harder and take it more serious.
I think it's because we know we got this opportunity and we are so passionate about whatever it is. I remembered, and we can, someone introduced me to a African-American male founder.
Mm-hmm.
His deck I saw his deck and I was just like, what is going on here? And then in the middle of his deck, he's like, my ARR is 1.5 this year.
You're like, what?
Yeah. And I
What?
told him, I got on a phone call. I haven't met him.
Start with that.
I was like, you need to start off with that. He got funding like within months.
2 seconds.
Yeah. And so I think it was that even his own presentation, or like the ability for us, for either people of color or female founders, to say, hey, here's the value that we can provide. It might be not that the fact that we just need that guidance, that sponsorship. And at the end of the day, I do think, like, I don't think I've met, of all my female founder friends that started off this journey with me, the only reason some of them are still going at it really hard, and the only reason that some of them didn't is because they didn't get investment.
Yeah.
But the ones that did, and with little, very little,
That's the thing,
we've
you know
gone we've gone very far.
Capital efficiency is another one of those
Yeah.
things that are, super sought after as an angel, because you only have so much dry powder. You need your founders to be careful. It's interesting, when we did the Female Founder University, we were kind of going upstream saying, hey, maybe we can find people. And we had this actual other realization. Once we got past a certain number of applicants, Like in the first 50, we're like, okay, yes, like 5, these are ready to come to the incubator, 45 aren't. Then all of a sudden we got to 100, 200, 400 applicants. And then all of a sudden of the 50, they were all in our Goldilocks zone.
Yeah.
All of them had products in market. All of them had some, I would say, well, maybe 35 to 50 had some level of revenue. 15 had some level of traction, but non-revenue traction. So it was like, whoa, wait a second. We're not lowering the standard here. We created a specific device, and that device, people came out of the woodwork to participate in that event. And people are not creating those those strategies and those opportunities. And once you do, it just all of a sudden, it seems clear as day that there are enough.
It was hard for me to get angel investment, even though with my network and who I knew. And it was like,
Coming out of Google and Twitter, it was hard for you to get angel
Yes,
investing.
and so I think like it's just really hard. I kept it alive because I did participate in an accelerator. And within that time, I did meet other angel investors and then my lead investors. So I think it's really, I've been on the other side, and so I know how hard it is to be on the other
I was
side.
thinking, you tell me what you think. Because we did Female Founder University.
Yeah.
Right? We did it very quietly. Like, I think I tweeted twice, like, we're doing this. We did one email. Because I don't want people to be like, oh, Jason's trying to get a cookie or like a gold star. It's like, it's really the female members of my team are driving it as much or more than I am. But now, do you think we should do one for underrepresented minorities?
Yes.
If we did African American and Latino Founder University, would we be criticized for doing that? Would it be inappropriate for me to do it, or do you think we should do it?
No.
Because we have a debate now.
No,
We're active debating this.
No, I think you should do it.
I
I
should do
think
it.
there's a lot of resources from underrepresented founders. I was in a panel at TechCrunch Justice.
Yeah,
And
saw that.
Yes, and I was in a panel.
Megan Dickey was the.
yes.
She, her first job was working for me. She did launch
Yeah,
TechCrunch.
she's
awesome.
She's
I love
great.
Megan.
But there, one of the other fellow panelists that I don't want to point out, but he also works for an accelerator, and he was like, "Oh, there's quit your job and promote full time." And I was like, sometimes underrepresented founders can't quit their job, right? Like they
No,
don't
you
have
have
a
rent.
they don't have a friends and family option.
To sleep on a couch. Yeah.
Yes, and so I think it's really important for people to understand the difference around like Latinx and Black founders as opposed to other founders.
And it's
The
different.
challenges are very, very, very much different than female founders, correct? So I think it's really, really important to have those discussions, and I think that the support is needed.
All right. Now you got me thinking I should do it. Because I was just going to do it and say, like, hey, let's just try to give a third of the slots, but maybe just do a dedicated one where you say, hey, we're going to do this.
Yes.
Just as a white guy, I'm always like, I've learned, like, maybe I shouldn't be the guy to do certain things, or like, I try not to be too vocal about these things, because there's a whole contingent of people who are like, just ready to criticize, any kind of good act. So I'm just maybe keeping it very quiet and doing it very like on the DL. We email our list, we get the work done, and then we just move on. We don't like try to
with
like.
your brand, Jason, I think there's a responsibility for you to actually do this, and to do it just as the learnings that you'll have, and as an investor, the potential you can see there. I've seen incredible ideas coming out of underrepresented founders outside of the Valley, like so much. And they all are so thirsty to have someone hear them out and what they're doing.
All right, we're doing
And
it.
I so
That's it.
So do
Latino
it, and
and
if you need me to speak,
Should
I'll
I
speak.
use the term African American or Black?
I think whatever you
This is
feel
another thing
comfortable.
I think a lot of white people need clarity on.
Yeah.
I use African American, but they call it Black Twitter sometimes. But I want to also be most respectful. But some people say just use the term Black. But other
I
people say
think
no,
it's-
use African American.
I think it's. I've learned-
Latino is the right word for Latino,
Yeah.
right? This-
Or now it's Latinx or whatever. I don't know.
Latinx?
Yeah.
What is that? I never heard
Because
that.
a Latina or Latino at the end.
Oh, is
so
gender
gendered.
specific. So Latinx.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, so Latinx is.
I got that. I'm writing notes, and you're
I
teaching
think
me.
as terminology goes, is just making sure that we've had this discussion with the Women of Project Include, and I think it's all very much preferential. For example, we choose, or I like URM for underrepresented minorities.
I like that too.
So instead of just saying, some people use people of color, et cetera. So some.
Yeah, but technically,
Yeah.
people who are Indian are people of color, people who are
Yeah.
Asian are people of
Yeah.
color, and they're overrepresented.
Yeah, so underrepresented minorities is.
URM,
what-
underrepresented
yeah.
minorities, is not a derogatory statement.
No.
Because I was told by somebody they felt that was derogatory, and I was like, that's the term I hear people in the industry who are doing social justice and who are working on diversity issues, that's the term they use. So I think that it's the right term. But you see how sensitive words are?
Yeah. I think minorities, just saying minorities when we are like Latinos are the majority. But when you say
That's weird too.
When you say underrepresented minorities in tech, you're talking about there are a minority in tech. They are underrepresented.
This is the thing people don't realize is like Latino Americans are going to be the majority of the country very soon.
Yeah, well,
in our lifetime.
Yeah.
These people are like, kind of clueless. The Republican Party and other people are just like, yeah, we're the majority. It's like, remember to check those statistics.
Yeah.
I don't think
we're already the majority of the population in California, correct?
Of course.
And so, I think our representation, and as we continue pushing forward, it's really important. If you think about it, like the major CIOs of companies, Cisco, Facebook, and Hewlett Packard are all Latino. They're all CIOs, so they have the data.
Yeah.
They know, and so
also, this whole if you look at millennials, are you a millennial or are you Gen X like me?
No, I'm Gen X.
You're Gen X, but if you look at millennials, like when we were growing up as Gen X, it was like, oh, you're dating somebody from another ethnicity. Yeah. That was notable, not like crazy notable, but like, oh, you're different ethnicities.
It doesn't matter to me.
And for millennials, they're just like they're typically like my daughter is Korean, Greek, Swedish, and Irish. I mean, 4 different nationalities. Yeah. Like all of our kids are going to, and then her kids will wind up being 9 or 8 or 6 different nationalities. It's all blurring into.
Yeah, there's not going to be a solution that needed. Atipica will probably evolve more into how do people want to be hired? How do people want to look for jobs? Everything's going to be automated. Like, give me a job. Don't make me search for one.
Yeah, I like that.
So, yes. So
I think that's one of the things you're going to have to contend with is I think right now you're going to get a lot of leads because you can solve this problem. But the software is going to have to just solve the general problem of qualified people.
Yes.
Right? So, but you're aware of that, obviously.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, everybody go check out Atipica. Go do a trial. If you're hearing my voice, no company's too small, no company's too large to go try Atipica. Yeah. Give it a try. Maybe it helps you. And if it helps you, maybe you write a check for 10, 20 dimes. And this company gets really big.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Laura.
Really appreciate
thank you for being here. We'll see you all next time on The Swing and Startups. Bye-bye. Oh, my God, we went so long.
I know.